Hi, Donna. Are you chairing?
I am, Theresa. I'm just going to give everybody another 2 minutes in case there's some that are going to join on time, and then I'll begin.
No problem. Thanks.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's just gone 13:45 on my side, so I'm going to begin, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Theresa Giorza, who's going to be presenting today on a paper. It's actually an excerpt from her PhD study titled Responsibility in Early Childhood Contexts, Lessons from Trees. It sounds fascinating, and we look forward to the presentation. Over to you, Dr. Theresa.
Thank you. I'm just going to find my presentation. I've asked to share. I don't know if you can see the screen.
Not yet.
Okay. What's happening? It's the top share content.
Share content, and that will open up a tray.
Yeah, it looks like the.
Then you can click on screen and then share your screen and then open up your PowerPoint. Here we go. Something's coming.
Okay, let's rather go here. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but not your PowerPoint yet.
Okay.
You'll just have to open up that.
I was trying to open it. Can you see the...
Yes, I can see you. Okay. There we go.
And here we go. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. So in my presentation, I'll give an account of one excerpt from a larger artographic research project carried out with children in an inner city preschool in Johannesburg. So artography is described by Springay, Irwin, and Kind as living inquiry through art and text. The methodology pays attention to the three interconnected practices of knowing, being, and doing, and allows a cross-contamination of pedagogy, research, and creativity through sensory and affective noticing. Karen Barrad's theory of agential realism supports this merging of self with worlds and goes further to trouble the separation of time, space, and matter. Hopefully, the workings of this theoretical orientation will become clearer through the presentation. The inner city suburb where this research site is located was historically designated as a white area under apartheid. And since its establishment in the late 1800s, has always been a place of arrival for immigrants, as it still remains. Now it is home to a diverse Pan-African community. The class of reception year children in this study came with diverse languages and backgrounds, predominantly from indigenous South African and neighboring African national communities. They are co-researchers with me and their teacher. The focus of my study was children's interactive learning with their environment. Interaction is a Barradian term, Karen Barrad, who I mentioned before, that refers to the fact that in any phenomenon, subject and object are mutually affecting and co-producing one another. Simply put, children and the learning environment co-constitute one another. I was interested in the agency of non-human elements of the environment, inspired by Reggio. Environment as third teacher. Post-humanist take on this concept positions us as humans alongside and among the other living and non-living beings, objects, and forces that co-create our realities. Importantly, a post-humanist notion of reality recognizes time as well as space and matter as collaboratively producing experience. According to Barrad, our histories and our imagined futures are folded into the present and are part of what constitutes our experience or reality. So hers is a relational ontology, which recognizes the ethical demands that these powerful and very particular connections make. Recognizing our relations. Able, can you please mute yourselves, please? Recognizing our relations render us able to respond in ethical ways, hence responsibility. So what happens when we think together with the park and its pasts, presents, and futures in an ethically relational way? So the thinking about time and histories and thinking about ethical connection. So here's a small vignette from my study. On the visit made to the park to find new spring leaves, the grade R group discovered a small tree sapling growing at the base of a large plane tree. They were taken by it. They immediately identified the tree as small like them and deserving of love and attention. "We love it," a number of them chimed. They wanted their picture taken with it and posed alongside it. The small tree appeared, whoops, what's happening here? The small tree appeared in a number of drawings. Don't know why that jumped out of presentation mode. A number of children's drawings. So then, on a subsequent visit, we discovered that the small tree had been cut down, mown down in the routine grass cutting done by parks management. The sadness was palpable, but I want to propose that the sadness can't be defined as internal emotions the children have individually and subjectively, but it is a shared response that flows energetically in between and amongst the company of children and the little tree. Sadness sends ripples through their collaborative sense of connection with the little tree and the wider community of the park, their drawings, the grass, the clover, the ants, the soil, my camera that was recording the events. They all have mutual distributed agency and are all active participants in the world's becoming, materializing and unfolding with variations of material, discursive, and temporal. The small tree is not a mute, passive object of human knowledge to be discovered, thought about, or experimented on in a Cartesian sense. The children and the tree are part of the world, a nature culture's reality in which sensory connection is central. The children are tangibly affected by the violent removal of the small tree sapling. So the children posed for pictures with the truncated sapling. They expressed their disappointment and even a jaded resignation, as they are possibly becoming accustomed to being excluded from decisions about things that matter in school or the wider community. But what are the lessons from trees referred to in my title? This park, while offering encounters with the organic and ecological, including creatures such as bees, ants, caterpillars, and rats, is managed and controlled as part of a system of city parks, with particular notions of order, control, beauty, and functionality, foregrounding certain stories and erasing others. Grass, and more specifically lawn, is part of our long and vibrant history as a city. Lawn exerts its colonial presence on the Highveld as part of the purposeful invention of urban leisure, sport, and recreation. Somebody can't see the slides.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, Theresa. I can see it. If you can perhaps just move, it's only on slide 1, your title slide, so perhaps you can just move it to where you're talking from.
Yeah, okay, this must have opened a double thing because I'm not on slide 1. Okay, let me stop. What should I do? Okay, wait.
Unless you just close it and reopen again.
Oh.
Stop sharing and then start again.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt your presentation.
Yeah, I see. I'm in the right place now. But you see, okay, let's see. Presenting. Is this working now?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see, do you see the whole screen? The whole?
Yes, we do. We see the children at the tree. Now we see the...
Have you seen all of those up to now?
No. Well, in the previous part of the presentation, yes.
Saw this one?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so this was the little tree that they encountered, and it appeared in their drawings. The little tree and the big tree, right? Then the tree was mown down in the routine grass cutting. And so what are the lessons from trees? And we're looking at the lawn as a colonial presence on the Highveld, producing urban leisure, sport, and recreation. So this space is not a food garden, nor is it a muti garden. It is a recreational facility where the gymnastic and play equipment and alien lawn variety invite particular actions: swinging, climbing, running, rolling, somersaulting, and in so doing, co-constitute modern urban children in parks. In other words, the construction of children in this way excludes other ways of being. The children's close attention to small details, perhaps enabled by their comparative closeness to the ground, draw my attention to things I do not usually notice. I notice the clover among and between the grass, and this company of ants dragging away a leftover piece of pup. This is an indigenous weed that is taking over the lawn. So ants are too small to fence out and can go too deep to poison completely. The perfection of the colonial park is being undone in visible ways. There's a conflict between the mowing and the tidying and the forces that constantly contest it. A different rhythm emerges. This is the rhythm of a multi-species engagement and ethical responsive care that challenges accepted and progressive narratives that envisage schools and parks as enabling and functional environments for healthy, normal, appropriate development, learning, and improvement. Individualized measures of development have little to do with the relational and ethical responses the children engaged in. It was only when the image of the little tree appeared repeatedly in the images generated by the children that I saw how much it mattered and how devastating its removal was. The removal of the small tree made visible the exclusion of the children from the right to care for and make choices about their learning space. In an empathetic response to the tree, the children shared their sense of the tree's subjectivity entangled with their own. Not human, but living, and like them, managed in a controlled setting with human purposes and agendas of progress. Their place in school and the tree's place in the park, always at risk of being swept aside in the more important grand scheme of progress and development. In the image shown here, the young artist has included an image of the person who sweeps the park. People who help us is a theme, as you know, covered in the life skills curriculum for grade R. And here, custodians of the park could be said to have been found wanting. The park and the city constructs children in particular ways, as discussed earlier. They are kept in the confines of schooling so that their presence in the materiality of the world is minimal. Thinking with the park, it is clear that a future is already threaded through the now. Parks are planned with a particular conception of citizen and of child. But what other possible futures may there be? Prominent African philosopher and writer Achille Mbembe addressed students at the start of the Rhodes Must Fall uprising and spoke of the need to renegotiate public space as a move to decolonize South African society. For him, as for many South Africans, the students who were demanding free access to education were raising issues that had been left unaddressed for years since the dawn of democracy. For the early childhood education sector, it raised the alarm bells. How much more urgent was free universal early childhood education? And what importance does public space have for early learning? Land designated as public space is managed by a team of park managers. A park manager is given the task of overseeing between 20 and 120 different urban spaces, which may be a mix of developed parks, undeveloped parks, conservancies, and nature reserves. This is according to Beni Kabafu 2018. Each one manages a team of between 15 and 30 horticulture workers who move from site to site, cleaning, mowing, and maintaining the spaces. Beni Kabafu's ongoing research advocates the reconfiguration of city management relationships to improve the possibilities for effective co-production of public spaces through meaningful partnerships between local government and community groupings. One could say that public parks are a surviving relic of a social system that valued the notion of the commons. The term the commons refers to property held in communal ownership and responsibility. The question that emerges from this vignette asks, how can children, as a fluid and fluctuating constituency, but an important one nevertheless, be recognized as custodians and co-owners of public space? To conceive this kind of public space, there needs to be an exploration of different kinds of ownership, those not reserved only for individual adult humans. Ownership can be reconceptualized as communal and intergenerational. Urban planners may be more effective partners in the fight for better early childhood services if they consider the importance of public space for urban children. Besides the Fees Must Fall campaign, the other major political for South Africa is the land question. This story about the power of public space as learning space is where land hunger can be seen to apply perhaps to our youngest citizens. On a macro scale, democracy in South Africa has changed the city in important ways. The pass laws and other race-based legislation are gone, and elected officials represent the populace through periodic election processes. However, the limits of these changes are clear in the ongoing divisions and persistent patterns of wealth and poverty that play out across our maps. In Johannesburg, clean new cityscapes are being created to the north, while degraded mining areas and a decaying inner city are left for dead. Most of the city's children contend with dodgy, dangerous, or otherwise inadequate play space, an urgent issue of educational access not yet receiving appropriate attention. A multisensory aesthetic and an ethical responsibility on the part of my fellow participants produced an emergent and artful environmental education, whose goal is the forging of careful relationships between human and more than human companions in the business of learning to live well together in our wobbly city on our troubled earth. An ontological shift is necessary from that of conventional Western science, in which nature is separate from culture and knowing is unrelated to responsibility. This is Karen Barad again. A critical post-humanist perspective moves the researcher from an objectified position outside of the reality being studied to a place of recognition and responsibility within it. A new ethics is required to do justice to and with a generation of woke and environmentally aware earth dwellers. The inseparability of knowing from being, one's positionality and subjective reality, and the ethical implications that this way of knowing brings, allows me to reconnect early childhood education and care with the many related and entangled fields that it spans, but which are disconnected from it by the disciplinary boundaries created by conventions of governance at the various levels and spheres of the state apparatus. It provides a story of learning as worlding and repositions life skills, the third area of content in the foundation phase curriculum, rather as life strategies for living together on a damaged planet. So learning with the park has produced knowledge about the inseparability of the micro and the macro, the systems of management from issues of pedagogy, curriculum, and daily programs of teaching and learning. Political and ethical choices need to be made, and central to these are the images we hold of child, of pedagogy, and of land. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Giorza, for that fascinating presentation. There were so many things I was trying to write down as you were going, but just from my side, obviously your methodology of autography and the link between the knowing, the being, and the doing really stood out for me. And I think I've never heard of it, and it's a novel way of making sense of your data. And then also bringing to attention the acceptance of the already connected conditions of things, and our sense of responsibility and acknowledgement of all the relationships and entanglements in our world. So yeah, there was so much also that, you know, taking that small moment, that tiny moment of the children with the sapling, and having the children co-construct so much more than what was just seen and observed by them. So yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. I see Erica posted in the chat, Dr. Giorza, I want to thank you and Prof. Karen Murris for opening up a whole new world with post-humanism theory. So that's an appreciation. And then I would like to invite everybody in this session to comment or to question, please. Just before I do that, I see Anya has also said, well done, Theresa. Your work never fails to interest and challenge my outdated perceptions.
I don't believe she said.
This was amazing. Thanks, Theresa. I want to read your PhD. Wow, that's something, because like we know, only about 5 people ever read your PhD. So there's your 6th. Well done.
It's available on the UCT Commons. You know, they have
the repository.
Yeah, yes. But I have recently published my monogram from that PhD, which it's slightly different. I mean, I extended it a bit further. I published a book with Springer recently, and I've given the link there if you're interested.
Fantastic, thank you. Are there any questions or comments that you would like to raise in person while we have some time, colleagues? Okay, doesn't seem.
One comment
Yes.
I just would like to make is, and I didn't, because I was trying to fit this into a short time, I didn't make the link to the national ECD policy, which is actually very forward-looking. And there, in that policy, there's a conception of actually making use of public space, recreation centers, parks, etc., and actually having play facilitators coming in, so it actually does envisage a very flexible approach that takes into account the affordances of public spaces.
Yes, and I think this has been highlighted throughout the conference, starting with our first keynote where Prof. Ibrahim called us to action through research, and then backed up today with Prof. Atmore, stating that our policies, they are fantastic, but what is happening on the ground does not match that ideology. Yeah. So yeah, I hope your work is going to be disseminated and shared, and it will move us into a better place. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate the presentation. And I see there's one last comment here from Leonie. What an amazing presentation, so new and refreshing. I enjoyed your practical involvement with the children. And then just Anya, I agree with that, Donna. So
thanks for that. And thanks everybody for joining me today. And thanks, Donna, for chairing.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the last little bits of the conference. I'll probably see you all in the next session. Take care and stay safe.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.